Welcome everyone to this webinar. We're excited you're joining us again. For those of you who don't know me, I am Marloes Reining. I am an ambassador of the International Living Future Institute for South Africa and also director of Solid Green Consulting. We would like to welcome you. Today we're talking about, we're not talking about buildings, but we're talking about products and how these products can have a positive impact on our planet. And also how you then demonstrate that you're actually making a positive impact on the planet. It's a total new topic, even for me. So I'm also going to learn a lot today, and I'm really looking forward to that. We are joined by two lovely ladies from the States to explain this all to us. We have Ren from the International Living Future Institute, who will give an introduction into the Living Product Challenge, and Stephanie, who will speak from Humanscale, who will speak more from a manufacturer's point of view. And then, very exciting, we would like to thank our sponsor, Formfunc, for this session. Formfunc is the exclusive distributor for Humanscale in Southern Africa. They are a leader in workstation optimization, ergonomic furniture design and manufacture. Formfunc provides a sustainable and ergonomic furniture solutions to the residential, hospitality and office sectors through the provision of monitor arms, ergonomic office chairs and other ergonomics tools. And please have a look at their website. Their stuff is really amazing. And you will hear more about their furniture because Stephanie is going to talk from a Humanscale point perspective, and she will show some of the products they're making, and which then Formfunc will sell through to South Africa. And 25 of these products are Living Product certified, so that's super exciting. I'm going to show you a quick video on Formfunc.
Formfunc Studio started in 2009 and was founded by Peter and Kim Kowalski. We have since opened up an assembly plant where we locally assemble product in our Cape Town facility. At Formfunc Studio, we supply a solution. That solution is ergonomics. By implementing ergonomics, we focus on the comfort, the wellness, and the productivity of the end user. We provide sustainable and ergonomic office solutions to the residential, hospitality, and office sectors through its provision of monitor arms, ergonomic office chairs, task lighting, and other ergonomic tools. This in turn results in better health, productivity and efficiency in the workplace. Something so simple as such as a monitor arm can get the screen to the correct eye level, and get the screen to the correct depth, alleviating neck issues, eye strain and back problems. We've also implemented a declaration card. The declaration card feeds out information about what's in our product. What we're doing at Humanscale is we're focusing on cleaning up the ocean, and with our latest product, the Smart Chair, we've actually got 2 pounds of plastic in our backrest. What's unique about our product is it's a counterbalance mechanism. So from sitting to standing, it's instant. There's no buttons and levers that you've got to push and wait for the desk to come to you. It's instant. It comes up with you when you want to stand or when you want to sit. The word Formfunc says it all. We focus on the form and then we focus on the function. In doing so, we get the end user to work smarter and live better.
That was a short introduction to Formfunc. One of the things that they managed to get last year is also a 6-star Green Star interiors rating for their offices in Lanseria, which is a huge achievement from a green perspective in South Africa. Thank you to Formfunc for sponsoring this session. It's really appreciated. So what initiates this session? In our previous sessions, we've been talking about Living Building Challenge. And as you by now probably know, Living Building Challenge is one of the certification systems from the Living Future Institute, but they have so much more certification sessions or certification systems available. And one of them is the Living Product Challenge. International Living Future Institute, their mission is building a world that's socially just, culturally rich, and ecologically restorative. Super exciting that we're going to talk about Living Product Challenge today, and hopefully in 2 months' time we're going to talk about the core, as you can also see on the slide here, the core certification system. But today we're going to talk about Living Product Challenge, and I'm sure Ren can do a much better description of International Living Future than I. So just a bit about Living Future Collaborative South Africa. We are part of the Living Future Network. So if you want to join us, follow us on Facebook and on LinkedIn so that you're up to date with all our events and webinars to come in the future. I'll talk about the Living Future accreditation a little bit later. Today, I'm not going to talk much. I'm going to hand it over to Ren first and then Stephanie after that. So Ren is joining us from the US West Coast, Seattle, and she's the Business Development Manager for Manufacturers and Interiors at the International Living Future Institute. She has an undergraduate in art, history, and French, and got her master's in interior architecture. That's quite an interesting combination. She has worked as a designer for a number of years, where she took her firm to PVC-free, which is also a super achievement, and help designers to integrate sustainability criteria into their material specifications. And now this is quite interesting. She's possibly the only person who loves talking about sustainability but doesn't like to be in nature itself. So Ren, you can explain that one. And then after Ren, she's going to be followed by Stephanie, who joins us from the East Coast of the US, and she is the sustainability coordinator at Humanscale. And Humanscale is a premium designer of ergonomic office furniture that improves health and comfort and definitely lead the industry in terms of sustainability when it comes to products. Stephanie focuses on calculating the footprint of Humanscale products through the lifecycle assessment, net positive products, and sustainability certifications for all their products. So she will talk a little bit more about that when we dive into it. But Ren, please take over and share your presentation.
It's so nice to see you all. What does good look like? Instead of making less bad versions of things, what if we reimagine what good looks like and how we make things? And so that is our mission, is to establish what is good. And so we have a lot of things that we do at ILFI. We have our flagship, which is the Living Building Challenge. We have the Living Community Challenge, Living Product Challenge, and sort of certifications and labels that nest under those. And so I'll be talking about Declare and Living Product Challenge today. But we really did start with the built environment because we realized, these days we spend 90% of our lives indoors. And if we want to literally build a healthy and sustainable future, we have to start with the structures that we spend our lives in. This is also coming because we're starting to understand the connection between the built environment and our bodies. And there used to be we used to think that, it doesn't really affect us if I live in a good area, if I'm not in a frontline zone, this won't affect my body, but we're finding that that's not the case. And so there was a study done on little kids, little babies, and they found that babies have a lot of heavy metals, plasticizers, already in their bloodstream when they pop out of the womb, which doesn't seem great. And these numbers seem pretty small, these are in the parts per billion, but when we consider that Ritalin is effective at 15 parts per billion, which is something we give children to affect their behavior, these numbers start to look a little bit more scary. And so some of these things have been banned since the 70s, at least in the United States. And so they're still showing up in our bodies. And so we're starting to understand that what's in our ecosystem is in our bodies, what's in our buildings is in our ecosystems. It's all this connected web, and we should start to maybe pay some attention to it. One thing that makes ILFI unique is that our approach to chemicals is a hazard versus risk approach, which means that we evaluate chemicals and their effects on people and the ecosystem from the entire supply chain. So we look at, is this toxic to extract? Is it toxic to manufacture? Is it toxic to the construction workers? Is it toxic to the end user? And so we evaluate how toxic a chemical is for the entire lifespan of it. And so I'll get into this when I talk about the red list, but we it goes back to our mission of we don't think you can build an equitable future if people along the supply chain are sort of poisoned or affected by something, and we want to create a world where that is not the case. This is also something that the AIA, which is the American Institute of Architects is starting to pay attention to as well. And so this is something that I think designers, we should start to be aware of and talk about, is that as we start to understand this connection between what's in the built environment and how it affects our bodies, the AIA is starting to see that design professionals may be held liable. So similar to sort of health and safety issues in the United States, that's the American Disabilities Act, we are held professionally liable for safety issues such as, can you exit the building in an emergency? The AIA is starting to see that as we make this connection between healthy buildings and our human health, that we may become professionally liable. And so I think that's something that we should be aware of, that not only is it the right thing to do to be talking about making our world a better place, but it is something that professionally we will also have to be very mindful of. I used to be an interior designer, and like I said in my intro, I have an art history background, but I find myself reading things like BlackRock investing reports and The Economist. So I don't know what has happened to my life, but here I am. And so I have noticed that the money people are starting to talk about this much more seriously. And so BlackRock Investing, the CEO, Larry Fink, wrote in his letter to CEOs that climate change has become the defining factor in a company's long-term prospects. And so it used to be, really date myself, but when I got into this business, there was a lot of please, sort of begging manufacturers, please do this. It's the right thing to do. But now the business case is starting to make itself much more strongly, which is actually very helpful for me. They also, BlackRock they released a sustainable investing report, and they did a study they surveyed their investors who have more money than I can even imagine. And they said that their investors want to invest in companies that are doing sustainable things, that have sustainable practices, but they cannot get good data about these. And so they even noticed, so last year in the 2020 letter, before COVID hit, Larry Fink wrote a letter saying, guys, we're gonna start taking this pretty seriously. Climate change, it's pretty serious. And then this year, his letter was kind of straight fire. And he was like, companies that are not engaged in getting to net zero carbon goals, they're going to start flagging and start disinvesting. And we can say what we want about BlackRock and whether or not they're actually following through with this and how they actually govern themselves. But the fact that they're starting to say this publicly means that there's a lot of shift in the market for sure. But what it came down to is this sort of data, this reporting that people are looking for. And so that is something that ILFI fills that gap for. That is something we felt from designers, that they were saying the same thing. They want to work with sustainable companies. They want to work with healthy materials. They cannot get that information. And so that's what ILFI does. We sort of bridge that gap of making information available, giving manufacturers a place to report that information in a way that is easy to digest for the consumer. And so all of our programs, if it's a certification or a building certification, they're all based on performance and measurable performance and data, and they have to be transparent about it. And so when you are either building a living building challenge project or you are getting a living product challenge certified, you must be very transparent. You must provide the data so you can show that you're really walking the walk, because that's really important to us in terms of building a sustainable future. We really want to be the most robust on the market and really push us forward as fast as we can, because we need to build a sustainable future really quickly. So I'm really excited that Stephanie's here to talk about that journey that Humanscale went on, because this is something that they use internally as a tool as well, I know. So the first thing that we came out with was the Declare label, in terms of reporting transparent, for building products. We noticed that when you are working with building products, there was no nutrition label for them. And so that's why we came up with the Declare label. It is a nutrition label for products. It looks like this. It tells consumers and designers sort of the who, what, where, and why. So it tells designers, where did it come from? Where was this product made? How long it's supposed to live for? We just introduced an embodied carbon tag. That was some feedback we got from the market that designers really want to know about that. So we've included that now. It will also tell a designer or consumer what happens to a product at the end of its life. Can it be recycled? Is it compostable? Does it go to the landfill? Do they have a take back program? Something like that. So you can really see the top part there is the where does it come from, where does it go portion. And then it will tell a consumer the chemical ingredients down to 100 parts per million with any toxic ingredients highlighted in red. And it will tell at the very bottom there, it will give you the red list compliance and how much and the VOC content there. And so it really is a very simplified way for designers to make a choice in 3 seconds. Is it red list free or is it not? Is it declared? And so they can make a choice really quickly. When I was a designer, sometimes you have like 10 minutes before a meeting, you got to find something really quickly. You need to make a choice really quickly. This helps them do that. You can also start to dig into it if you have 3 minutes, where does it come from? Maybe you're interested in that. And then if you have 3 hours and you really want to get into like, what is that chemical? I want to do some more research on it. You can do that as well. So it really gives an entry point to designers and consumers at any level, which I think is really important because some people want to really dig into it and some people just want to know, is this healthy or is this not? I have a meeting, let's go. So that's the Declare label. Something that's really important about the Declare label and the Living Product Challenge label is that we compare everything to 100 parts per million. Everything is reported down to the same level of detail. Again, I'm from Portland. It's a big food town, so I make a lot of food references because I like eating. And so when it comes to 100 parts per million, if you think about a Twinkie, a very infamous American dessert, if you look at it at 10,000 parts per million, it seems pretty good. Like cake and cream sounds delicious. But when you get down to 100 parts per million, you start to realize there's a lot in their products and know that you're seeing the same information for both. So, when you're in the grocery store and like 1 pint of ice cream seems a little bit better and you realize it's the serving size is like a tablespoon and you're like, I have been betrayed. This gets rid of that. So you can look at, you can compare 2 carpets from 2 different manufacturers. You can look at a carpet from the same manufacturer. You can really compare apples to apples and know that you're seeing the same information. So I mentioned that the Declare label screens against the red list. The red list is our list of the worst chemicals. These are chemicals that pollute the environment. They accumulate in our bodies and in the environment. So going back to that study of little kids, that's what that gets at. And they also harm construction and factory workers. And so a red list free product contains none of these chemicals. Red list free products are those manufacturers have done a lot of work to remove those chemicals. So I encourage all designers to reach out to manufacturers who have red list free products and say, thank you, you've done an amazing job, and continue to specify those products because as a designer that you are working with a healthy product, which is great. So I mentioned that the Declare product is where we really started, and we started to think, what's next? Really, let's go back to our mission of what does good look like? We've made information transparent, but that only is making things more transparent. It doesn't address how we make things. And so that was some feedback we were getting, that designers are really concerned about not just what's in a product, but how it's made. How did it get to my doorstep? And so we started looking into that. Again, I read The Economist. That's my life. But they released a climate and business report in September of last year. And they started the report off by saying companies that fail to tackle climate change face a backlash. And I thought it was really interesting because that was in the present tense. It's not will face a backlash, but they face a backlash. And The Economist is saying that that's happening currently. They mentioned that this is coming from consumers, younger ones, who are calling for a lot of faster action on climate change. They're holding people accountable. From my own sort of market research and sort of feedback I'm getting is that these clients are much more savvy at reading through greenwashing. They want actual, provable data. They know how to find that data, and they integrate it into their design practices. There was also a study done of at least U.S. consumers, and they found that 90% of millennials are willing to pay more for products that are environmentally friendly, and 80% are willing to pay more for products with a social sustainability story. And so these are not just designers. This is not in the built environment world, but this is consumers at large. And the reason I bring it up is because in the design world, these types of consumers are going to be not only the people in our firms. They are the future leadership. They are our clients. So their value system and their values of how they want to spend their money in terms of where that money goes is going to translate to how they write specs. It's going to translate to how they advertise for projects they want to work on. And so as designers, it's incumbent on us to understand that language, to speak that language, because they will be looking to us for that expertise. And so I when I talk to firms and I talk to firm leaders, I'm like, these are the kids you're hiring out of school. These are your future leadership. These are the clients you want to work for. You know, the big tech companies, they all have made these ambitious climate goals. If you want to work for those clients, you need to speak that language. And so this is just becoming part of our ethos. And so it's really important to understand that, which is what led us to the Living Product Challenge. So the Living Product Challenge is really a framework for developing products that make the world a better place. Get back to our mission of what does good look like. And so the Living Product Challenge combines material health with life cycle analysis and hand printing, which I'll go into. So it looks like this. It looks like a jacked up declare label, but it tells the designer and a consumer a lot of cool stuff. And so here is one of the Humanscale labels. I'm really excited about it. It is fully certified, which means it is a mega awesome product. There are not a lot that are fully certified, and so this is a huge accomplishment, and I really applaud Humanscale for doing this, especially because furniture is so difficult to do because there are so many parts and pieces. And so again, this label, this will show you where a product comes from. Where does it come from? Where does it go? You know, is there a life cycle? You know, does it get sent to the landfill? Does it get sent to a recycling plant? Like, is there a take back program? That is all listed there. It tells you the functional unit, which is really helpful. So, you know, one label covers one chair or 1 square foot of carpet or whatever it is. So you understand what these numbers mean. It will tell you the footprint, the carbon footprint there, if you see on the bottom. I think I have a slide about this. I'll show that. I'll go into that a little bit more, but it'll show you the footprints and the handprints of every product. So it'll tell you, you know, how did this product get made? What is the carbon footprint? What is the energy emissions? What was the water footprint and the waste footprint? And it will tell you the declare status, red list free or not. So what is hand printing? Hand printing is something that is unique to this certification and to ILFI. It is a concept about sort of, if you think about footprints as the negative impacts we leave behind, hand printing are all the positive impacts we can cause. And so we heard a lot from manufacturers that they want a way to report the good that they're doing. And a lot of them are doing great things because they're really trying to make a difference. And I don't know how many times you've had this problem as a designer, but I became very frustrated when I was on their sustainability tabs of nameless multiple companies, and their sustainability tab under their like initiatives, they'd be like, we recycle our cardboard, and you'd be like, okay, well, there's like no data here, like that means nothing to me. Like, how much cardboard? I don't even know. What does that do? And so this is a way for us to actually measure the positive impacts that a company is having. And so we measure them in the same units as the life cycle assessment. So you see here the carbon footprint has been measured. The handprint is measured in the same unit of measure so that we can be sure, that you can be sure as a consumer, that there is a measurable effect that is happening and it is net positive. So these hand printings can come in sort of any shape or form. It can be, you know, engaging your community in a different way. It can be purchasing renewable energy. It can be installing solar panels. I'll ask Stephanie about their hand printing initiatives, but they're unique to every company, so every product is different. But like I said, it is measured in the same unit of measure as the embodied energy. So here you can see a zoomed way in. So you can see there the cradle to gate footprint, and then you can see their carbon hand printing, their water hand printing, their waste hand printing, and their energy hand print. So you can see that not only is this a net zero product, it is a net positive product. They are having a positive impact. They have gone above and beyond just their footprint to have an actual positive impact in what's happening. And so I think that's really important to talk about, that it's not just net zero, it's net positive. And so The handprints really can be anything. We have companies that have done rainwater catchment. We have companies that have partnered with local STEM programs to teach elementary school kids about STEM, and with that program have studied how much solar energy they need in a community and installed those solar panels. One company purchased low flow plumbing fixtures for a local community college to offset their water and make a net positive water impact. They can preserve watersheds. Humanscale is using plastic recovered from the ocean. So every product is unique when it comes to their hand printing, and I encourage everyone to take a look at them because they're always great. It really is a way to tell stories. And as you know, at least I found when I was a designer that telling a story is much more impactful sometimes than just straight up data. And so having those stories that you can talk to your clients about why this is important is really helpful because it resonates with people a little bit more. So again, the Declare label is the only certification that combines material transparency and the red list. And the Living Product Challenge is the only framework that combines material transparency, life cycle disclosure, and hand printing. So that's what makes us unique and makes us the most sort of robust on the market. And you can find us in the wild. You can find every Declare and Living Product certified product at livingfuture.org. We have a database. Part of that rigorous transparency is 150 manufacturers and growing every day. So you can find all those products there. But my job really is to make sure that wherever you find products, you can find a living product or a Declare product. So that is my spiel. And I would love to hand it to you, Stephanie.
So as Ren said, I'm Stephanie. I work for Humanscale. I am super excited to be talking with you all today about Humanscale and our journey to 26 net positive products. We just launched our 26th, so it's official that we now have 26. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Humanscale is the leading manufacturer of office ergonomic tools that allow people's work to adjust to them rather than the other way around. So this encourages movement throughout the day, which improves overall health and well-being. Some of the products that we manufacture include task seating, sit-stand tables, task lighting, monitor arms, things of that nature. So Humanscale has had the goal to have a net positive impact on our planet for many years. As our Chief Sustainability Officer puts it, less bad isn't good enough. If we only focus on reducing the negative impacts that we're having, we will still be moving in the same direction. And the only thing that will change is the time in which we get there. We will still be using up resources, still polluting the planet, just at a slower rate. So we must therefore look beyond reducing harm and on creating measurable positive change. So when the Living Product Standard came out in 2015, it was the first time Humanscale saw a standard that asks manufacturers to do more good than harm. And so that was really exciting because it was the first time that Humanscale's progress towards net positivity could be evaluated against an external standard. Although the challenge certifies individual products rather than an entire organization, the audit process really evaluates all aspects of our sustainability program, the ins and outs of our manufacturing, and provided us with a window into the effectiveness of our overall program. So in 2016, as Ren said, Humanscale became the first manufacturer to achieve the full Living Product Challenge. And we did this for our smart chair and our float table. This year, we have expanded our certification to 26 total products, and this time certifying all of our global manufacturing locations. This includes all of our seating, our monitor arm line, as well as our float table. So now if you purchase one of those products, it's having a net positive impact every time it's being manufactured. So today I'm just going to break it down a little bit and talk a bit about how we achieved this certification and what it means for Humanscale and beyond. So life cycle assessment, as Ren pointed to, is a really important part of the standard. It doesn't have its own petal per se, but you see it pop up throughout the standard in many different petals. So life cycle assessment is a tool that allows manufacturers to calculate the impacts that your product has during the manufacturing process. So these impacts can be how much water is consumed in the production, how much carbon is emitted, how much energy is used, but there's others as well. You can see the ozone depletion, land use, eutrophication, ocean acidification, the list goes on and on. Basically, if there's a negative measurable impact, life cycle assessment will tell you what that is. And Humanscale has used LCA for many years. We use it to not only calculate the footprint of our products, but also to help guide design decisions to ultimately reduce our products' footprints. And what it allows us to do is compare our products' impacts to others in the industry and identify product hotspots. One thing that this standard and this certification round forced Humanscale to do is take those LCAs a step farther and obtain third-party verification of those LCAs. So now an outside auditor has come in and said that those numbers are accurate. We created the models correctly, and so now we are confident in the impacts that we say that our products have. So handprints are calculated the exact same way as footprints through LCA, and handprints are positive change relative to business as usual. And it's the way that Humanscale is able to claim that our products are net positive. So we go out and create handprints equal to 110% of our product's footprint in 3 main impact categories: carbon, energy, and water. And so each time those products are manufactured, we can say that they're having a 10% net positive benefit for those 3 impact categories. For going out and finding handprinting campaigns that work for us, it took a little bit of trial and error. Some of our original campaign ideas were really well thought out and beautifully designed on paper. And then when we took it into the real world, perhaps it wasn't affordable or it wasn't scalable, but it was those like stepping stones to where we are today. And we were able to learn from that experience to see what exactly works for us. So what does work is we have found that sponsoring solar panel installations at nonprofit organizations is a really impactful way that we can handprint. It not only allows these nonprofit organizations to produce renewable energy on site, it gives them independence, and it also saves them money on their no longer utility bill. And they're able to use those funds and re-implement them into their overall mission and touch more people in the community and do more good. So that is what we would call the social co-benefit of that particular campaign. We've also done things such as sponsor the installation of LED light bulbs around the country, as well as worked with a few schools to implement sustainability programs. One of the most recent ones we just completed was a school competition where LED light bulbs, low flow shower heads, and faucet aerators were distributed to the students, and they had a competition to see who could install the most. So that really has it gets young people involved in the conversation, thinking about sustainability, but it also has a measurable impact. So those were the ones that we, found worked for us. So the first petal of the standard is the place petal, and it's broken out in a sense in 2 different ways. The first is very local to your own facilities. It talks about how your own facilities impacts nature. And then the second part is about habitat restoration elsewhere. So for the first one, it required Humanscale to review the IUCN Red List of threatened species and to confirm that our manufacturing wasn't threatening them in any way. We started doing this because of LPC, and now we, on a yearly basis, review that list and confirm that we are still not threatening any of those species. It also required us to put into place these 3-year biodiversity plans for each of our locations. We are creating habitats for pollinators and threatened species, as well as have an ultimate goal of transitioning all of our irrigation needs from using city water to rainwater that has been captured on site. So the second part is place, as I mentioned, requires a manufacturer to support habitat restoration. So this is something that Humanscale had already been doing. Our CEO and founder, Bob King, has been a member of WWF National Council for more than 15 years and truly believes that this nonprofit organization is a natural extension of Humanscale's mission. So for this particular petal, we just continue our partnership with WWF, which is focused on protecting and restoring the eastern plains of Cambodia, which is a really special place because it has, rich ecological diversity and habitat for many endangered species. So the water petal asks manufacturers to identify where in their process they use water, and it requires that those water needs are now met by on-site harvested rainwater. So Humanscale uses water for 2 reasons. We use it as a coolant in our foam production and in the powder coating of metallic parts. Our paint line is set up at our Nogales facility, where we powder coat seating bases, seating chassis, mechanism parts, and aluminum monitor arms. So for the first time that we went out for certification in 2016, we had installed our rainwater capture system at our largest facility in Piscataway, and this time around was able to replicate that for our other facilities. We use water in our Dublin facility as well as, I said, our Nogales, but we don't in our Fresno facility. It doesn't require any water for manufacturing. So now we can say that globally, all of our manufacturing water is met with rainwater that's been harvested on site. Similarly, for water, the standard asks manufacturers to identify where energy is used. We use electricity for things like lighting and air compressors, air conditioning, heavy machinery. We use natural gas for heat and hot water. We use propane for forklifts. And in 2014, Humanscale installed a large solar panel system on the roof at our Piscataway location, and it provides over 80% of the electricity needed there. And so what we were able to do is use that renewable electricity that's being generated on site and allocate that to the 26 products that we have certified by pursuing the product share pathway for this particular imperative. So Humanscale has taken a strong stance to not include toxins in our products. And what that requires for us is understanding all the ingredients that go into our product. And many times that requires us to reach out back to our suppliers, all the way through our supply chain, sometimes to our 3rd or 4th tier supplier, to research and find out what exactly those ingredients are. And once we have that list compiled, we compare that to the red list, which is brought out by ILFI. And if anything were to pop up on that list, we then have to work with our suppliers to remove it. There have been a few instances where that's happened. So where we found a toxin to be in a component, of course, we did not ask for that. But since we've identified it, we work with our supplier to source a new material, and a new material that doesn't have that toxin and that will also pass our quality testing. Next, we publicly share those ingredients, just like a nutrition label for food. We have declare labels, and they publicly disclose all the ingredients that are in our products. For this particular certification, this round, the standard pushed us to get those declare labels third-party verified. We also were required to hire a toxicologist to analyze the materials for human and environmental health and safety. So the materials petal is another large part of the standard. It requires that any of your wood products or paper packaging be FSC certified. This is something that Humanscale has had for many years, so it was something that we were happy to see on the standard, and we're able to check that off. The same for appropriate lifetime. Humanscale has industry-leading warranties, so this was something that we were able to comply with. This part of the standard also asks that manufacturers have a responsible end-of-life program in place. Humanscale's products are designed for disassembly, which makes their recycling easier. As part of this renewal, we fine-tuned our extended producer responsibility program, which we call BEAM, stands for Building Equipment and Materials. And what this does is it helps our customers manage end-of-life furniture waste. So when a customer is decommissioning a large office space and they have furniture that they need to find a new home for, we can kind of intervene and connect them with vendors who will resell, recycle, or donate those materials, ultimately diverting them from a landfill. The second part of the materials petal asks a manufacturer to maintain an over 90% waste diversion for their facilities. Humanscale, prior to this second round of certification, had a fairly robust recycling program, but this pushed us to go a little bit farther and take those extra steps to obtain those extra percentage points. And it gave us a goal, an end game. So what we did to obtain 90% was we worked closely with vendors to find ways to recycle materials that are typically hard to recycle. We reuse materials such as packaging that we receive from suppliers. And we've also had conversations with our suppliers asking them to reduce the amount of packaging that they send our way. Lastly, we regularly train our employees on how to manage this material properly. The second thing that this part of the standard asks is that once you've diverted over 90% of a waste, you are required to handprint the rest. So we were able to tap into some of the programs that we already have in place, such as our ocean plastic program, where we take discarded fishing nets and recycle them into our products. Currently, we have 2 products that use this material. Our Smart Ocean and our Liberty Ocean utilize nearly 2 pounds of this recycled fishing net. So we're able to use those numbers for hand printing, as well as the numbers from our product refurbishment program. We will refurbish product and then offer them to our employees. Right now, it's just for employees, but we are hoping to expand that farther as well. And lastly, as I mentioned on the previous slide, we extended and expanded our BEAM program, which is helping customers divert waste from office decommissionings. So for the equity petal, in 2016, we obtained a JUST label per the standard. We actually have 3 for our global manufacturing locations. And these are similar to a Declare label that they transparently show information about a company or a product. And this is focused on social impacts. So it basically tells us how we're doing on social impacts within the supply chain and how we treat our own employees. The second part of equity is that your hand printing campaigns have social co-benefits. This seems to be kind of a nice side effect of the hand printing campaigns that we've chosen. And so they seem to go hand in hand there really nicely. So last but not least, the beauty petal requires manufacturers to create products that are beautiful and that people will want to use for long periods of time. Secondly, it asks that we educate and inspire others. We have hosted, since the announcement of this new certification, multiple trainings, both internally and externally. And we also, on an annual basis, host open houses at our facilities, which welcomes the community to come in, learn about Humanscale, learn about sustainable manufacturing and living products. Of course, this year, these have to be postponed due to COVID, but we are looking forward to when we can open our doors again. So sort of to just wrap all of that up, I wanted to talk about how this certification has impacted us since April. Basically, we've gotten an overwhelming positive response. People are extremely excited to hear that these net positive products exist. Our clients are asking by how much their orders are, leaving the world better off. So we've actually created certificates that we can use to communicate this impact to them. It's really nice to see the excitement behind what we're doing. Obviously, we're very proud to say that we offer 26 LPC products that have a net positive impact. But one of the perhaps more exciting things is that it's possible, that this can be done. And we hopefully have raised the expectations that customers have on their manufacturers. We hope that they'll demand more from their manufacturers. They might ask for, transparency on carbon data or water data, material use. And we hope that demand will transform not only our industry, but beyond that. And we hope that more manufacturers join us. Thank you.
Thank you. That was really amazing and insightful. Do you guys want to start addressing some of the questions in the post box? I saw there was a question around what is the cost of labeling, and is it per company or per product? Maybe that's probably one for you, Ren.
Yeah, so it is per product. And so the cost for a declare label is, if you just get one, it's $1,000. But if you get more than 10, the cost starts to go down. And then the living product challenge is similar. It has to be per product. And so it is $15,000 per product. And then there are the donations that you make on top of that. We can start talking about there was another question that I thought was really great from Matthew, where he says, may I ask what the proportion of Humanscale profits from the sales go towards all of these initiatives, which I answered in the chat. It's 1/4 cent, which is per dollar of gross profit, which is dictated by the standard. But the other question he had that I wasn't sure I don't know that I had the answer to, but Stephanie, you might, which is, how do the investors' profit or return requirements conflict with profits diverted to these amazing initiatives? Do these initiatives improve stock value appreciably, or are these things just reflected in the ultimate cost to the consumer? In other words, how cost effective is this strategy in the modern marketplace? And I think that's a great question. And I don't know that we have the answer to it, but maybe you do, Stephanie.
I'll just say that Humanscale is not a public company, so we can't really speak to the stock value, but I can say that we are not pushing the costs of hand printing onto the consumer. It hasn't changed the cost of the products at all.
May I reply?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That explains a lot. I mean, I think Humanscale products are fantastic. They're just extremely expensive for the average user. So that tells me what you've said is that the cost of these labeling systems are very cost effective, because it's costing almost nothing to get the green labeling to a very high level, but it's not really affecting the price either, which means that for cheaper products, this could be a bit of a headache, but for products in your price range, it works very well. Would that be a fair summation?
Matthew, I like your point that you're making, that the cost is a big issue, or an issue that we need to wrestle with. And that is something that I talk to manufacturers a lot about. And what I'm finding is that these days, it's starting to become that it is more expensive to not do this, that your customers are starting to demand it. Your now investors are starting to demand this of you, that eventually it will become more expensive to not be sustainable. And so that is a really lovely shift that I'm seeing, that it is coming both, it's sort of a top down, bottom up. It used to be that these grassroots organizations were, yelling about this and then it didn't feel like anything was changing. But now that the money people are taking this much more seriously and we're having all of these, this consumer activity about it, we're starting to meet in the middle a little bit. And so I'm very hopeful about the future and how the cost of this is starting to be much less of an issue, that companies that like Humanscale that are really pushing the boundaries, that is something that The Economist also noted, that companies that get out ahead of this are going to do much better financially. They will be in a much better financial position because they will be sort of building that brand equity, but they will also be building knowledge of their supply chain so that they are a more resilient company. BlackRock found that in the last year with COVID was sort of like a test case for like, how is climate change going to affect our businesses? And what they found is that sustainable companies, they bundled some that to measure against benchmarks. And so the sustainable companies outperformed by 81% their traditional benchmarks. And it's because companies that are engaged in stuff like this, that like Humanscale is doing, have a much better understanding of their supply chain. They understand like how their product is made, where it comes from, where the pieces come from. And so they can sort of pivot a little bit quicker. They can be more agile. They can be more flexible. They're much more resilient. And so it is starting to become a financial liability to not be taking these things under consideration. So I think that's really important.
I get it. It's essentially become a threshold value.
Yes.
However, it doesn't reduce the cost to produce the product. I mean, although as amazing as Humanscale products are, there are clearly minimum amounts of inputs. You've got to have a certain amount of steel and plastic and whatever plastic that might be, and springs and whatever. You can't detract. You can't use the profits. I mean, initially, I imagine having all these labeling things for certain companies will put them far ahead in competition, which will generate more profits practically, but it won't reduce the cost of anything. So then it's just a matter of how you peg your product. It's good news ultimately. I'm a product designer, but most of my products are rather cheap by comparison, which means I've just done a quick calculation. If I use the declare label and I produce 1,000 units, that's only $1 per unit, which is in our terms 15 Rand. But if a product costs 150 Rand to produce and your profit is say 150 again, then you're going from 150 to 300 to 315. It's still in the percentage margin, whereas I imagine for say Humanscale monitor arm, which is already 5,000 Rand a pop, perhaps it's in the noise. You don't even notice it. So it's just a matter of pegging the label. I mean, I wouldn't dream of using the IPC label for a cheap product. It just wouldn't make sense except if you went to massive scale. So it's just interesting to me, and I think it's really useful what you've told us.
Thanks, Matthew. That was a really good question. I also have a question. We have quite a number of manufacturers on the line, and what would you recommend that they start off with? Maybe LPC is maybe maybe a step too far for now, but like for a market for a very new entry market like South Africa, what would you recommend to them to start off with to get going on a journey?
Yeah, I love that question. I would recommend starting with a declare label, and even before that, just starting to look at what's in your product. Start asking your suppliers, what's in this? Looking at your supply chain and just starting to ask those questions. What is this? Can we get some information about it? But if you're really interested in getting Living Product Challenge, I would start with a declare label, start with a life cycle assessment. That will get you well on your way. I'm going to drop my email in the chat. So if anyone who's a manufacturer wants to chat with me, I'm happy to get into this a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of how it's achieved. But I would say, yeah, start asking questions about what's in your product. Ask those suppliers for transparency. Get excited because you're doing something cool. It's really hard, but it's also, when you have a declare label, it really sets you apart. When you have a Living Product Challenge label, it sets you apart. Designers take notice of that. They know how hard this is, and they reward manufacturers that do that. So.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, Ren. It's the way that Humanscale has done this, Living Product Challenge and declare labels. And even like our ocean plastic program is we've started off with just one product, and you get a lot of the kinks out and a lot of the learning curve with just starting small, and then you can replicate that elsewhere. When we started with the Living Product Challenge, we only did it for one of our facilities. So at that point, just our float table and our smart chair were certified if they were manufactured in Piscataway. If it was manufactured elsewhere, they weren't covered. But now we kind of went through that process. We were able to replicate that elsewhere and to 26 products. So start small and then just, get the kinks out, learn the process, and then replicate is something that's worked for us.
Great, thank you. I see an interesting question in the chat box from Terry, and it's directed to Stephanie. Has Humanscale invested in an LCA tool which enables you to do analysis per product yourself?
Yeah, so we use OpenLCA. It's free for users. The only thing you have to pay for is the database. But yeah, there's a lot of different tools out there. There's Gabby, there's OpenLCA. There's a couple new ones in the works, but OpenLCA is what we've used.
And another question in the chat, with products being shipped international in projects with regards to the footprint of the shipping, is this included in the calculation of the impact of the product, or is this seen as outside the scope of a LPC certification?
For LCA calculations, we've always done worst case scenario. So we will look back at our shipping reports and see where our furthest customer is. And we use that distance for every product, every LCA. However, for the hand printing, the standard requires that you're net positive from cradle to gate. So it actually doesn't include customer shipping, but it's everything up until the point that product is packaged ready to go.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons we have the where does it come from as part of the Declare and the Living Product Challenge label, so that you can start to see, am I working with a product that's made closer to me? Am I working with a product that's not as close to me? Because that is such a tricky part of calculating embodied energy, embodied carbon, is that shipping. It's really hard to capture that. And so that's why we include that in the labels.
Great. Denise, I saw your hand was up. Do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, Ren, I just, with the Living Building Challenge and some of the other certifications, they've got the reporting at a global level as to how many buildings have been certified internationally. Do we have something similar in the Living Product Challenge? Can you give some indication of like the regions where it's excelling or really being adopted?
Oh, that is a great question. We are currently building out a dashboard that we hope will be public to show you where all Living Building Challenge projects are. So the building ones. I think it would be really interesting to do the same thing for Living Product Challenge. Currently, we don't have it by region. We have it by sort of CSI division. So like in the spec sections, and we have it by manufacturer. We have not done it by location yet. It is gaining a lot of, so not yet, but that's an interesting way of looking at it. And I will bring that up to my team.
Yeah, because I know when you see it graphically on the world's map, you're starting to see which regions are adopting. And obviously the States is heavily populated because that's where it originates from. But yeah, it's nice to see it at the global trend as well. And then just another quick question. Sorry, I'm hogging the line a bit. Another quick question is this kind of certification, I know we very much build industry, but can it be applied across any product range? I mean, can it be, because it's, we know that one of our biggest challenges is pollution, and that's really all about waste and managing resources. But, is this a labeling or certification process that can be adopted across any industry, not necessarily limited to the build industry or manufacturing linked to the build industry? I don't know if that makes sense. I know Matthew, I think, have done living product certification, if I stand corrected. And that's wooden flooring. But, is this something that can be adopted in any industry, really? like, you've got the green tag certification that is also very much build industry, but what is controlling, I'd say, product certification across the board? Because it's not just build industry. We can't just do, it's only us doing good or trying to do more good. It's everything. It's all our manufacturing should be certified. How does that reflect?
I love that question. In my dream state, there could be a declare label on your shoes, on your bedding.
That's my thinking. Your clothing, your bedding.
Yeah, and I think consumers are starting to ask for that.
Okay.
Currently, the red list was developed with the built environment in mind, and so the chemicals listed in the red list are not specific to, but are the chemicals most prevalent in building products in the built environment. So we haven't gotten into things that you find in like skincare, for example, or something that you would find in, I'm trying to think of inks or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's not ready to go on a skin product, or it's not ready to go on a candle or something like that. But I do think that there's room for it to be incorporated in in consumer products, because consumers do care about this, and you're starting to get frustrated with people that say they're doing stuff and then there's no measurable action. So I think that that's definitely shifting.
No, like from the water sector, I'm more from the engineering water sector. We're seeing some of that kind of certification filtering through between biodegradable products, which are really consumables, and like you said, we should be translating that against everything that kind of that we come into contact as a product that we use, that fundamentally transfers that loading or chemical loading or contamination back into our natural resources, which is really where the challenge lies. For us in water, the micro plastics in skin products and all of that stuff, it all ends up in our wastewater. And my biggest challenge is if you can get the product manufacturer to do it within the chemistry of nature, you've really won the battle. That was my interest in it. How wide is it being adopted globally already, and can it go across multiple industries and not necessarily be limited to the build industry?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Thanks, Denise. Thanks, ladies, for this amazing presentation. This is just a beautiful slide from the Living Product Challenge, and just to imagine products that make a world a better place instead of doing less bad. Just in closing as well, if you want to know more about the International Living Future Institute, you can become an individual member. From them, I think at the moment it's like something like $50, and it gives you a lot of benefits. And they have amazing newsletters. They have a lot of online resources that are available to you then, and a lot of interesting reading material. And even though you can't afford to do the Living Product Challenge, all the stuff that's in that system, it's so interesting. And even if you can do one petal or one thing, it doesn't necessarily have to be the actual certification. You can use it as an inspirational tool and identify inspirational issues that you can apply to your own product. And then if you want to learn more, not just about the Living Product Challenge, but like Living Building Challenge or Living Community Challenge or other systems with it that the International Living Institute is offering, you can become a Living Future accredited professional. And so it's like an education program. It's very interesting, and I can tell you it's very educational. So you can become an LFA through that. And then once you're an LFA, you can become an ambassador like Tulani, me, and Audrey are for South Africa, and join us or join the collaborative through the networking. You don't have to become an LFA for that. So you can just join the collaborative in South Africa, and you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn. And if you want to email us, this is our email address. Thank you to our sponsors for making this webinar a reality. We really appreciate it, for providing the cost so that we can have this webinar CPD validated. You can see contact details here for Koan van der Berg if you want to have more information about the Humanscale products that you can get in South Africa. So all the products that Stephanie was talking about today, you can get here in South Africa. As we've heard before, their products are great. We're using the monitor arms and we're super happy with them. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you, ladies, for calling in from a different part of the world and educating us about the Living Product Challenge. It was definitely educational for me, and I hope for the other attendees as well, but I'm sure everybody was enjoying it. Thank you very much for attending, and we hope you enjoyed it and are going to join us for the next session next month on biophilia. Have a good evening, everyone.